Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. Over the past 7 years, we've understood what matters most to you, the entrepreneur, and in year 8, we're taking head-on two of your most pressing concerns, that of funding and mentoring. I'm Sananda Jayaseelan, presenting a very special panel today on Women's Day, talking about the issues most pertinent to women entrepreneurs like yourself and what you should be doing to encourage more women in the workplace here in India Inc. Let me introduce our very special panel. Let me start by introducing Devita Saraf, Chairperson and CEO, Wood Television; Manisha Raisinghani, Co-founder and CEO, LogiNext; Tejas Parulekar, Co-founder, Saffron; and Radhika was stand-up comedian and author of Unlady. Thanks for taking the time to join us in studio today, talking about what are the issues which are most pertinent to women entrepreneurs and women in the workplace and women in general when it comes to what's really happening around the globe and what's really happening in India. And I do know 20 minutes is not enough to perhaps address all these big picture questions, but we can make an attempt. And it's great having each of you who comes in with such varied experiences. And I really want to start by talking about the fact that there are 3 female entrepreneurs here tonight with us. And I do have someone who's an entrepreneur in the sense that you really created that niche for yourself. But let me start with my immediate right. Tejas, as the female co-founder of a business, that's in a very traditional industry, if I can really call it that. What has been your experience about creating this business from scratch, and what your experience as a female entrepreneur has been?
Sure. So, thank you for having us over here. It's really a pleasure. To just start with, I'll just tell you what we do. And you're right. I mean, so I come from a tradition, so I run a business which is in the traditional hospitality business. However, we are doing everything non-traditional. So I'm a banker, was a banker in my earlier avatar, and then I hung my boots, and then I started this business about 5 years back. We run, manage, operate, and market luxury homes, private vacation homes across the country. Most of them actually today are 2 to 5 hours driving distance from Bombay and Pune.
Sure.
And they're focused on the weekend getaways and that kind of a market. So it's a really non-traditional space that we are trying to get into. And therefore, it took a non-traditional hospitality person as well to kind of make an impact over there. Okay. As far as, when your question was very specific about how, as a woman, I came about in this industry. So I think the challenges, honestly, are very similar to, whether you're a woman or a man. But I think where I can make a difference is that the homes that we talk to and the home owners that we speak to, these are typically homes that belong to the rich and famous. They're belonging to industrialists, the professionals. And being a woman, perhaps I'm able to evoke a sense of trust in a lot of these homeowners. I also handle the operations in the business. And that's again where maybe, an eye for the detail is where, perhaps being a woman naturally kind of helps, bring that particular perspective in.
Sure. Okay, so great. You're talking about how you were a non-traditional person in the sense that you didn't belong to this industry and you came in. So you also decided that you didn't really belong to the industry when you decided that you were going to start off in this space as far as LogiNext is concerned. And I do want to talk about what your experience has been like leading a company which is as large as the one that you're leading. How was that experience like for you, and how have you brought your strengths as a woman into this industry?
Well, I would say it has been a great journey for us, right from building the product to selling to enterprise clients, helping them make an impact in their operations, right? It just gives us a very good feeling of how we are able to make an impact in this, logistics industry. Earlier, when I, moved back to India, like when we just started LogiNext, I used to get, different kind of eyes, I would say, when we used to meet people in conferences and networking events specific to logistics, because logistics is a very male-dominated industry, right? But it was a different feeling then. Now I think things have evolved, or maybe I have just accepted the fact and I have started ignoring the looks that I get.
Sure.
And anyways, in STEM also there are very less women who reach to a leadership position or in entrepreneurship. So it has been a great journey. I think I'm learning from other women entrepreneurs, learning from other successful entrepreneurs, either women or men, and going.
So I do want to talk about the female representation when it comes to STEM, and that's what you just mentioned. I'll come back to that. But Radhika, if you can talk about your experience in the entertainment industry. Yes, now perhaps there are a lot more women who are doing perhaps what you're doing, but when you started out, you were pretty much a lonely voice in that sense. What has your experience been like?
There's always a couple of outlier females in any industry, right? When it starts up, so it's like, oh, there are a couple of girls here, a couple of girls there. And that's across the board. It's not just entertainment or comedy or whatever. But an interesting thing happened to me the other day, which is indicative of how things are not changing as fast as they should, right? So I went to watch a movie, and I went to this well-known, and I'm not going to say the name of the cinema theatre chain because they may advertise with you. So I went to this big fancy cinema theatre chain, and I want to go to the toilet. So I go into the ladies' toilet, okay? And it's a movie house. Go into the ladies' toilet, and there you have these 5 huge portrait sketches of 5 amazing male directors, like Steven Spielberg, Woody Allen, and a couple of other really old guys. And I'm like, in the ladies' toilet, these are the 5 people I have to look at while I'm going to the toilet and then washing my hands. Now, I unfortunately couldn't go into the men's toilet, but I'm going to hazard a guess that there were no women director portraits in there.
Sure.
Now, a little thing like that, it's actually not a little thing. It's a very big thing because, there are young girls and even my age women going to the movies, and we at no point are being given the indication that this is an industry for all of us, It feels like the big jobs, the leadership jobs, like the director's the top guy, he's the number one person or she's the number one person. That's always a male-dominated space. So I think for me, what's interesting is, we keep saying, oh, there are a lot of women coming into comedy, a lot of women coming into any business for that matter. We're seeing so many women graduating from college. All that's cool. But the leadership positions are still predominantly male. And I think, there are a multitude of reasons, and we'll talk about that. But until that starts to shift in a big way, we're not going to hold the power. And I read a really interesting quote which says, you can have a seat at the table, which we all do, but you may still not be a player. So I think that's an important distinction that we need to, talk about.
Okay. Starting out very young, starting out in a completely, again, what many would see as a traditional industry, how have you managed to find your own space and build this company as the founder of this day? You want to speak to us about your experience?
Well, I have started this company a while ago, and it is a very large company. In fact, it's the largest Indian-owned TV brand in the world. But I think, to speak of what she's saying, at the end of the day, I had this vision to build a company, to be a woman leader in this space. And the first thing I started with when I started my company was actually not the strategy, but the culture. And within the culture, the mindset was, it should be very equal as a space, whether it's age, gender, background, religion. You just get really smart, driven people, and let's see what magic we can create. Over 10 years later of being in this industry, there's still no one like us. And it's not only because of the innovation that we do in the products, it's actually the entire back end that is just such an incredible team, which is so driven, so equal. We have a lot of women who are actually in leadership positions within the company. The head of finance in my company is a woman, a head of corporate sales is a woman, head of digital is a woman. So not just about a percentage of how many women are how many people in your organization are women, how many are minorities, how many are young. No, it's actually very equal. And I think that's really been the secret success for us to build the company that we have. As I said, that as a company, we're very equal, whoever we hire. To people of different ages, reporting to each other. So my assistant, who's been working for the group for over 31 years, retired. And I asked the admin head that, just send me a couple of resumes for a new assistant. And in the entire list of resumes, there were also a couple of men, which means that my team is so gender oblivious that they only ever saw potential, they only value intelligence and loyalty, and age and gender doesn't even occur to them. And I think that's the reason, that's the entire machine at the back end that's been able to create this business in the front end.
Sure.
And I don't say that my success only belongs to myself and my self-belief as an entrepreneur. I think it's the entire team that we've built of 300 people.
Okay, so you said something very interesting. I just want to come back to that, and this is open to the entire panel, but sort of pick up on something that you said, which is data showing that only 3 of 100 CEOs on the NSE as far as 2018, 2019 on the National Stock Exchange are women.
Yeah.
So if at the top there are so few women, what's really happening at the bottom? What's happening at the entry-level loads? What's happening, like you were saying, with other leadership positions, the CXO, the CEO, the CTO? What's really going on in these positions then? Does anyone want to say?
So I'll tell you, the problem is at the funnel, at the top of the funnel,
Yeah.
right? Right from when we are in elementary school, I'm sure all of us would have experienced almost 50-50 ratio, right? Like 50% girls and 50%
Yeah.
boys. But when we go to high school, then we go to undergrad, then we go to grad for technology, especially in STEM as well, right? The ratio keeps on changing. The ratio keeps on getting more biased towards more males and less females. So the kind of applicants itself that you get in your hiring process is less of females and more of males.
So I think when it comes to large corporates, you will still find that suddenly the funnel kind of narrows at the mid-level. That's if you analyze it, it's typically when women are in their 30s, right? That's where family starts, where you have the other responsibilities kind of coming in, and where the entire load, whether consciously or subconsciously, is then on the woman. Sure. And that's where it starts mattering. So then you have fewer women at the middle, and therefore even fewer women than at the top.
Sure.
What entrepreneurship does, honestly, and I found this because I've been on both sides of the table perhaps, is that it gave me a brilliant level playing field. Okay, so there was no bias. Like you rightly said, the customer never knows whether it's a woman-created TV or otherwise, and it's the same for my industry. It's the same for all our industries and that's what the change is. That instead of trying to be overly nice, all you have to do is create a level playing field in everything you do.
Sure, Radhika.
I read this interesting article where it said that part of the problem now I'm talking obviously about large corporates, is that women lean, and this is a thing that that they've been talking about now. It's not even that women lean out in their 30s. We lean out from the time we're quite young, because that's our culture, that you will get married, you will have children, and that's going to be your problem to take care of. So that leaning out starts early. Now, besides that cultural issue, which is huge in our country, obviously, even within the corporates, a lot of women tend to get groomed for, people-oriented jobs, or jobs that are not line jobs, that are not P&L jobs. So if you don't have a P&L job on your resume, how are you going to enter the C-suite? How are you going to become a CEO? Those jobs predominantly tend to be taken by men, and they're groomed for it. And a lot of companies that, are suddenly now scrambling to have more female representation, it's a scramble. It's not being done in a thought through way. It's haphazard. Let's put a few women in here. Let's dump a couple of them on the board. Let's do this. Let's do that. And then it's like for sure. But the truth is, these line jobs, right? These P&L jobs, these jobs that matter, the guts of the company, that keep the company actually running. You have to create you have to create a system to nurture women through it, and to make sure that they're prepared to take on those jobs, and then it becomes realistic. Your gender parity is then within reach. Otherwise, it's not.
All right, let's slip into a very short break on that note. On the other side, we'll continue bringing you all of the highlights as far as women entrepreneurs in India are concerned today, what they are looking for, what are some of the most burning issues that women entrepreneurs are facing, all of that on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. With us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight continuing to bring you a panel discussion that I did on the occasion of Women's Day, talking about what are the issues most burning for women entrepreneurs, and also what women entrepreneurs today say they need the most when it comes to their growth. Take a listen. Just before we slipped into break, we were talking about what's it going to take to really fix the top line issues. I still want to continue focusing on the figures, and maybe I can come to you first, Devita, and talk about the fact that you were talking about focusing on culture, not strategy, when it comes to your company when you built the company. I do want to talk about good hiring policies and diversity policies in India. What can we learn from the global best companies? What does a good diversity policy in India perhaps look like?
Well, I don't think any country other than certain Scandinavian countries or certain Asian countries are doing a fantastic job in gender equality in the workplace. So definitely in our country, we can make one of our own. We don't have to import a policy. For example, even in India, if you notice in Hindu mythology, the portfolios of finance, defense, and education were held by women. So actually, Lakshmi, Saraswati, Durga were holding the most important cabinets in India, and I don't know what happened over the years. And I would say that when it comes to diversity, you don't need a policy, you need a culture. There's only so much that you can put on paper that people need to learn and follow. It's when you change their mindset is when by natural practice do they actually hire women for their intelligence and their value rather than say, okay, this percentage I need as a diversity hire. So I would say a couple of things that don't follow the West. They really aren't breaking any great biases out there. Secondly, the culture has to change. You have to value women and let them be who they are. Please don't make them into men. That's one of the worst things that has happened in the business world, is women have just sort of become emasculated, and that hasn't helped anybody. And the third thing is, as a company, let women be who they are. Let them dress the way they want. Let them say what they want. Let them be feminine and graceful and still be really smart and sharp. And then believe me, you'll get a package that really adds value to your company at every level.
Research showing 5 to 6% is the kind of funding that has gone into women-owned and women-led businesses in 2018. So there are challenges really in the ecosystem, and if you want to take it on.
I think this is a gender issue. Okay, so I don't know much about actually why, and they'll have, as entrepreneurs, these women have more experience there. But as a gender thing, women are not encouraged to take risks. We are not risk takers, and we are in fact pushed away from risk. So the less risky your behavior, you're a good girl, And I think risky behavior is something men are rewarded for and we are punished for. And entrepreneurship by nature is a risky behavior. So, that's my two bits.
Because of the risky,
compliant.
Because of the risky behavior, we always kind of seek validation from outside world, right? When we take any decision, I think we would think 10 times, what would this person think, what would this person think? So once you start getting away from the validation seeking policy in your head, you're good to go. Trust me. That is one thing we need to change.
But things like funding, for instance, that's something that is coming to you from the ecosystem which is around you, from VCs, from banks, etc. How do those things get fixed? Because that would possibly be coming down to a bias about lending to women.
Honestly, it's just to do a lot of mindset change. The biggest challenge in India, everything that you're asking about, why women aren't entrepreneurs, why they aren't leaders, why they aren't being funded, is just so much age-old mindset, which is just followed in a lot of countries like ours, is the root cause, I feel, of a lot of these issues.
Okay. I remember doing a Women's Day panel about 2 years ago where we were talking about labor force participation. And at that point, we were lower than some sub-Saharan countries. The data that I'm looking at today is that we're at 27%. Nothing has changed in about 2 or 3 years. Nothing has changed perhaps in a decade. I'm sure if I go back and look at the data, we're lower when it comes to the number of women in the workforce, lower than Afghanistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, etc. And if you think that perhaps in urban India, the number of women in the workforce is much better than rural India, it's not. There are fewer women who are entering the workforce in urban India compared to rural India. Very quickly, we're running out of time on this panel. For entrepreneurs watching this interview, how do you think that's perhaps going to change? Any message that you want to give them based on your personal experiences, based on your experiences in your specific industries? What's it going to take to change? I know it's a big picture question, perhaps can't be answered in this panel, but one thing that you want to leave them with. Maybe I can start at that end this time.
Well, at an ET Now event, I was actually talking to Sir Richard Branson, and he said, and I asked him that how can entrepreneurs make a change to the world? It was a great question to ask. And he said something very sensible. And he said, look, try and change the circle around you. See how you can change stuff 1 kilometer, 5 kilometers radius around you. And I live in an affluent neighborhood in Bombay. And actually, the truth is that most of the women who are my age, who went to school and college with me, don't work. Because somehow the mindset still in India is that, you know, you don't need to work. Your family has money, your husband's rich, whatever. You don't need to work. Everyone needs to work. Yes. So let us not have like crazy expectations from women who are facing like challenges in rural India. Why can't we just have all the women in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, wherever, all work?
Yeah.
Why can't we have all the educated women in India work? So let us, you know, charity begins at home, right? Why can't we ensure that, you know, we make an effort to go to the school that we went to or the college that we went to and encourage women that, yes, you may be taken care of financially by your family, but you need to work. It makes a difference because you're confident, you're independent, you're respected, you're powerful. So the first thing I will say, no matter how rich your family is, please work.
Have a job outside the home.
Have a job outside the home.
Radhika.
Well, I would say go out and talk about your experiences, success, you know, successes or failures. Go and talk about it. Encourage more women to at least experience that journey. They can be successful, they can fail at it, they might fail and they'll again get up, but it's very important to talk about these experiences. So, you know, last month at Oscars, if you know, Natalie Portman, she was wearing a cape with all the women directors' name embroidered on it because they were not, you know, nominated for Oscars. So we need to talk about more success stories, more failure stories as well. It's okay to take risk. It is an amazing experience. Feel that experience, get that experience. It's once in a lifetime experience.
And at Leaders of Tomorrow, we definitely hope to provide a platform to more and more women entrepreneurs like yourself. I'm going to let you have the last word.
Sure. So I just wanted to take a minute and speak about the superwoman syndrome that we keep seeing, and where women want to do everything, and they end up putting a lot of stress on themselves. They have to be the perfect homemakers, they have to be the perfect mothers, they have to be the perfect businesswomen or the perfect employees. And this increasing pressure on themselves is what is causing them to burn out, give up on their dreams. So, you know, women should allow themselves to be imperfect, allow themselves to be, let the house be in a mess. It doesn't really matter. No one really cares. You have to be out there and experience it. Make your family co-conspirators in your journey. I think that's what I would really love to tell everyone.
That's a beautiful thought. I'm going to leave this panel on that.
Thank you.
Thank you to each of you who's been with us here on this panel tonight. Completely out of time in this episode of Leaders of Tomorrow. If you have any feedback for us, we love hearing from you. Our contact details is up on your screen, so just a moment. Do let us know. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.